And those were scenes from full military honors for 6 of the 49 soldiers who died in the fatal crash of a C-130 plane in Sulu.
It's become a tough task identifying the bodies which are already beyond recognition. And so far, the armed forces has identified 19 of the remains. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. We begin tonight with soldiers killed in the Sulu plane crash receiving military honors as family, friends, and colleagues grieve their loss.
It's not any easier for survivors who are either suffering from guilt or traumatized from the incident. Ryan Ang has the big story.
Morning filled the air as the bodies of 6 soldiers killed in the Sulu plane crash arrived in Cagayan de Oro. They were given full military honors. They were members of the 4th Infantry Division supposed to be deployed in Sulu. Their remains will stay in Camp Evangelista for an overnight wake. The families of the victims can't help but question what happened with their loved ones now in caskets.
Kasi alam na namin ang buhay sundalo. Talaga ang sundalo talaga kung mano ka sa gera o tanggap na talaga namin, pero sa ngayon nga parang umpisa pa lang sa career niya, parang na-shock talaga kami.
The family of Private Mel Mark Angana recalls how he signed up for military service after losing his job due to the pandemic. His first military flight, however, ended up being his last.
Ang saya-saya niya po, ma'am, eh. First time daw niyang pagkasakay ng eroplano.
The brother of Private Vic Monera, meanwhile, is having second thoughts of joining the military after what happened.
Pangarap mo talaga maging magsundalo. Siya ay seaman. Matakot na ako ma'am, kasi kami na lang tatlo ang naiwan sa aming pamilya.
The soldiers killed in flight will again be given military honors tomorrow before their bodies are transported back to their home provinces. Recalling the tragic incident doesn't come any easier for the survivors. Sergeant Ben Saudi Asanulia suffered burns on his face and injuries in his body after the strong impact. More painful, however, was losing his nephew who was with him in the unit for a long time.
Sobrang sakit, sir, kasi yung pagka-survive ko, sir, pilit kong balikan sana. Tingnan, pero hindi na makaya ang lakas ng apoy.
Others, like Private First Class Al-Sharif Atiula, experienced survivor's guilt.
Nagkadikit-dikit na kami, kaya hindi ako nasunog, sir, kaya natabunan nila ako lahat sila, yung sa babaw ko lahat, yun yung nasunog, sir.
Some, like Private Benjamin Obod Jr., had been traumatized after the incident. It was supposed to be his first deployment in Sulu after 6 months of training.
May liwanag na aming nakita, sir, sa gitna ng C-130, sir. At saka doon na kami, sir, gumapang ako, sir. Kung hindi na open yung sa gitna, sir, o walang liwanag sa harapan namin, sir, sa gitna, talagang ubos kami lahat, sir. Kasi hindi na kami makakalabas kasi grabe na yung apoy at saka yung usok, sir. Sobrang dilim na, sir.
The survivors thank the locals who helped them get to safety. 24 soldiers and civilians are still being treated at the Zamboanga City Medical Center, while 17 are still recovering at Camp Navarro General Hospital. For News 5, Ryan Ang, We Are One News.
What's next for the soldiers who survived the Sulu plane crash? To tell us, we have with us on the line retired AFP General and former Deputy Chief of Staff Restituto Padilla, who also served as a combat pilot at the Air Force General, what's the SOP? What's the process and the path ahead for these soldiers, whether or not they can get back to military service?
Hi, Robbie. First of all, it's the physical condition of the survivors that will matter. So that's one of the most important requirements that will be assessed by our doctors. So if there is a capacity for that soldier to serve, even on a limited capacity, he can be declared either P2. So there's a declaration. P1 is the most physically fit with no restrictions on the health of the person. P2 is slightly disabled because of perhaps a battle casualty or some disability acquired through the service. So in this case, these are acquired because they were serving and they were about to deploy. So doctors will assess if they have the capacity to serve, and if they have, they will be relegated to admin positions to continue on with their careers, but no longer in the line of fire, so to speak, or at the combat zone, but in a more supportive or administrative nature.
Okay. Now, on a related matter, you earlier said the crash could have been caused by system failure. What exactly does that mean? And given the little amount of information that we have, do you have any reason to rethink what may have happened?
Robbie, I'd like to first qualify that I'm no longer the spokesman for the Armed Forces nor for the Air Force. So what I will be saying are personal opinions. So the investigation of an aircraft accident actually tries to get to the bottom of Hawaii and how it happened. And there are three factors that accident investigators usually look into. Number one is environmental, the other is material, and the other is human. So the environmental factor seems to have been ruled out because the weather was fine. There was no untoward weather disturbance that could be told as having had an effect on the performance of the aircraft. So the second one is material, and the third one is humans. For the material, it's the systems on the aircraft, as you have mentioned. So there could have been a failure of the brake system. There could have been a failure in the reverse prop system that would have stopped the forward movement of the aircraft. So what I'm saying will be speculative in nature, but that is part and parcel of the task of the investigation team on the ground, to look at every angle to get all the potential information that are available in the area from eyewitnesses, from video recordings done by bystanders and others in the area, from official records of the tower, the ATO who manages the airfield, and all of any possible information that could be had. And then the investigators will make a ruling based on whatever evidences that can support it. And one of the most important things that came out of yesterday's development was the recovery of the flight data recorder. So the flight data recorder has a cockpit voice recorder that would provide the last-minute interaction inside the cockpit. So whatever there was that came between the pilot and his crew inside the cockpit would have been recorded by that voice recorder, and it will impact a lot on the investigation. So the investigators will have an idea of what really happened at the last minute.
Okay.
And more than that, the vital signs, so to speak, of the aircraft, which are recorded also on the flight data recorder, would be available for analysis. And the investigators will rely on those data to be able to assess if any of the systems within the aircraft were fully functioning prior to the incident, or if some of them have failed. So those are the things that we will be looking after or looking forward to hearing about from the analysis of the flight data recorder. Now, on the human side, the investigators will review the training of the pilots and the crew. They will assess the performances that they have had prior to the incident. If there was any incident that might indicate or reveal a potential human factor item that would or probably help or contribute to an accident. So if there are any of this that will come out from the investigation, they will be part and parcel of the final report.
Okay, salamat po, General. Former AFP spokesperson and former Deputy Chief of Staff, Restituto Padilla. Along with the loss of soldiers, the Philippine Air Force crash last Sunday left a huge void in the military's available C-130 aircraft. That leads us to tonight's big number, 0. That's the military having no working C-130 planes. Speaking on Radyo 5, AFP Chief General Cirilito Sebejana said the military had 5 C-130 planes in their inventory prior to the crash. The 4 remaining planes are not operational, according to Sebejana. 2 are under triple-level maintenance in Portugal. 1 C-130 plane, meanwhile, is undergoing a curing period. Sebejana said it is still uncertain as to when the planes will be functional.
These are the other big stories tonight. After saying vaccination cards will suffice for travel, the health department backtracks, saying local governments still have the prerogative to require RT-PCR tests. And the unrest continues as Taal volcano had 5 short-lived eruptions today, but sulfur dioxide emission has gone down drastically. And they are not yet done surprising fans. Global sensation BTS just dropped a sneak peek into their new song, Co-Pen by Ed Sheeran. These big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. President Duterte brought up once again the idea of leasing or selling off the remaining military land in Fort Bonifacio in Taguig to raise money for soldiers' benefits. It's an idea that's been thrown around for many years, but to this day, it has yet to get on a timeline. Pamela Vasquez gives us the front seat to this story.
I'm standing here outside the headquarters of the Philippine Army in Fort Bonifacio. This is one of the last remaining pieces of land in the district that has not been privatized. You cannot go through the gate, but you can imagine how huge the space is inside, with facilities for recruitment and training, a hospital, a gymnasium, and even a golf course. This area was thrown into the spotlight once more after President Duterte, while visiting the C-130 plane crash victims in Zamboanga, said he wanted to sell or lease off military land in Fort Bonifacio to raise money for soldiers' benefits. It's not a new plan. This idea was first brought up many years ago. An AFP Chief of Staff General Cirilito Sebejana told One News that he had long ago identified at least 16 hectares that can be freed up.
Yun yung i-open natin to interested investors na pwedeng gamitin for mixed use, hotels and other amenities na appropriate sa lugar, considering its proximity to the BGC.
The agency in charge of privatizing military land is the Bases Conversion Development Authority or BCDA. But its president Vince Dizon, who's been busy double-hatting as the IATF's testing czar, deferred to the Finance Department.
May working group po si Secretary Dominguez to study the long-term solution to the pension issue of not just of the armed forces but also of the police.
President spokesman Harry Roque also says they don't have a timeline in mind for the project.
The mandate precisely is to make full utilization of all our military assets, including camps and bases.
Fort Bonifacio is also home to the headquarters of the Philippine Marines, as well as one of the naval stations. Given its proximity to Bonifacio Global City, leasing of these military lands can certainly raise billions of pesos, money that can be used for the long-promised insurance and housing benefits for soldiers. The big question is, after many years of delay and given how busy the government is fighting the pandemic, whether President Duterte can make it happen in less than 12 months he has left in office. I'm Pamela Vasquez and we are One News.
Time for an extra's look at some of the day's big stories. Thinking of traveling, you might still be required to present a negative RT-PCR test result. Despite a recent declaration saying vaccination cards can replace swab tests, the Health Department says IATF Resolution 101 is still in effect, meaning LGUs can still require testing before entry. The DOH says it has yet to iron out operational concerns and if vax cards will be used in lieu of testing requirements. The Philippines is set to receive 30 million doses of COVID vaccines this July and August. That's according to vaccine czar Carlito Galvez. The first 16 million doses will arrive this month, including donations from Japan, the United States, and COVAX facility, as well as procurements of private firms. Several cities have halted their vaccine rollouts due to lack of supply. And from 21 days, the local Food and Drugs Administration has recommended a 42-day interval between doses of Russia's Sputnik V. Its manufacturer, Gamaleya Institute, is proposing an interval of 90 days in its request to amend its emergency use authorization. The country's FDA is also studying China's Sinovac EUA amendment request, whether its jabs can be used for children aged 3 to 17.
Toll fees will now be charged at Skyway 3 starting July 12, but it's going to be lower than what was proposed. The Toll Regulatory Board approved toll fees ranging from 105 to 264 pesos for Class 1 vehicles. For those heading north, this would apply to those passing through Buendia to Quirino, T. Rodriguez to Quezon Avenue, and Buendia to NLEX. Southbound motorists flying NLEX to Quezon Avenue can expect 129 pesos in toll fee charges. Those bound for Buendia coming from Quezon Avenue will have to pay 264 pesos.
And now for the big story in sports. It's back to the drawing board for Gilas Pilipinas. After humbling losses in the Olympic qualifiers, Gilas gears up for the upcoming FIBA Asia Cup in August. A look into how they plan on using their recent experiences in my report. There were victories, but there were also defeats along the way. It has been an interesting past few weeks for Gilas Pilipinas.
And this is the end for the Olympic dreams of the Philippines.
From sweeping the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers to falling short in the Olympic qualifiers. Still, the young squad is eager to bounce back. RJ Abarientos and Ange Kwame say they gained experience from competing with the likes of Boban Marjanovic and Milos Teodosic of Serbia.
The game plan was, to keep him out of the paint. I tried to adapt to the situation.
Every situation, every possessions, grabe silang magbasag. Kumaga ginagamit nila mismo yung experience nila para ma-outrun kami.
Magulang sila.
Gulang na gulang.
Coach Tab also shares this same sentiment. He believes that the team has to work on a cohesive offense against talented defensive teams.
Their advanced knowledge of defensive concepts puts our offense under tremendous pressure, and we're not ready. We're not mature enough to handle that. The second thing is just getting the players exposed to and used to the advanced level of talent that we played against.
Coach Tab admits it's still a long road for Gilas, but the boys are willing to grow. In the case of RJ, he gets tips from PBA legend and uncle, Johnny A. Abarientos.
Sobrang talagang pinafocus niya ako. Ayusin mo yung pagkain mo, yung mindset mo, ano oras ka matutulog. Kumbaga yung mga ginagawa niya talaga before, nung player pa siya.
Kwame, buksan. Pasok na naman for Ange Kwame.
And while the Gilas journey is tough, Ange knows that the team gets their strength from their own families.
Has your mom been watching your games?
Yeah, she's been calling me every day after every game. This is the first person I really want to talk to after like peace of mind.
Gilas is currently finishing their quarantine and a 2-week break before they start their preparations for FIBA Asia Cup in Jakarta, Indonesia this August. Gretchen Hall, We Are One News. Time for another quick break. When we return, who says they need your permission to dance? Global sensation BTS just released a teaser to their new single, co-written by Ed Sheeran. A look at the hit in the making after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. PHIVOX has recorded a series of short-lived eruptions at the Taal volcano in Batangas. Residents are hoping that it will not be followed by a strong one. The details in Greg Gregorio's report.
PHIVOX recorded a short-lived phreatomagmatic eruption at the main crater of the Taal volcano at around 5 a.m. on Wednesday. It was followed by 4 more eruptions until noon, resulting in meters high of gas plumes. Over 50 volcanic earthquakes were also logged over the last 24 hours. State volcanologists note that sulfur dioxide emissions in the past 2 days were lower compared to the previous week, but the public can't be complacent just yet.
Mataas pa rin siya kasi prior nung explosion nung July 1, nag-average tayo na more than 4,000 tons per day. Ang assessment ng PHIVOX is tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung paggalaw ng magma sa loob.
Evacuees in Barangay Barigon in Agoncillo, Batangas said they did not feel the eruption and tremors today, but they are complaining about the strong smell of sulfur in their area.
Para bang nagkulabo yung paligid, para nagkulay blue. Masakit sa lagi ng parang sinisipbahin na hindi ko maipaliwanag.
Residents are hoping that the series of eruptions will not be followed by a strong one.
Dahil nakakatakot naman po, wala kaming sasakyan. Kung kami po mabigla, paano kami? Huwag naman, Diyos ko po, sa aming dinanas.
Around 60 families or over 300 people from barangays Banyaga and Bilibinwang are currently taking refuge in evacuation sites in Barangay Barigon, which is not covered by the 7-kilometer danger zone. But barangay officials are not taking any chances. They are urging evacuees to prepare in case of a stronger eruption. Amid evacuation efforts, authorities are urging Batangueños to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Vaccine hesitancy is still rampant among evacuees even after the national government augmented supplies for those affected by the Taal's unrest.
Yung kung sino pong may gusto, hindi po naman pinipilit.
For News 5, Greg Gregorio, We Are One News.
Another big story in sports. In the NBA, the Phoenix Suns took Game 1 of the NBA Finals as they pummeled the Milwaukee Bucks 118-105. It was another masterful outing from Chris Paul as he led the Suns with 32 points and 9 assists. Devin Booker likewise contributed big numbers for Phoenix, scoring 27 points and dishing out 6 assists. The Bucks, meanwhile, welcome back Giannis Antetokounmpo, who missed the last 2 games due to a hyperextended knee.
BTS is at it again. Weeks after its summer smash hit Butter dominated the charts, the global pop sensation is already preparing for another single. Its new song is called Permission to Dance, in collaboration with Ed Sheeran. The ARMY ought to wait for its official release on July 9. Meanwhile, Signal subscribers will soon have access to a 24-hour comedy channel. Signal inked a deal with APT Entertainment for Buhay Komedya or Buko. And as its name suggests, Buko will give viewers a refreshing blend of lifestyle and comedy shows in 3 programming blocks. First, Buko Originals, which features news programs such as the lifestyle show #Main Goals, hosted by Main Mendoza. Cooking show Kusina ni Mamang, hosted by Pokwa, and News Patol, hosted by Jose and Wally. Second, Tawang Pinoy Classics, a treasure trove of iconic comedies that include School Bukol, Wow Mali, Bubble Gang, and more. Third, Throwback Tawanan, kapatid comedy series and game shows back on air, such as Pidol's Wonderland, Celebrity Samurai, Mac and Cheese, and Sugo Mga Kapatid.
That's one of our fortes. That's what we really do well. I was born around comedy, syempre, with my father in Bulaga. So sabi ko, let's marry our forces together and let's provide naman something new, to the audience.
Buko will air August 2 on Signal TV Channel 2, Satellite Channel 2, and on Signal Play app. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
One is never too old to make a dream come true. Take the case of 82-year-old woman Wally Funk. She is said to be the oldest person to go to space. She has been handpicked by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos to join him as the final crew member on the first crewed flight into space. But this shouldn't come as a surprise. Funk was a pioneer of the privately funded Women in Space program in 1961, but the program was abruptly canceled. None of them were able to fly to space. In a video posted by Bezos, Funk said NASA rejected her repeatedly. 60 years later, Funk's dream is set to become reality.
I didn't think that I would ever get to go up. And they said, Wally, you're a girl, you can't do that. I said, guess what? Doesn't matter what you are. You can still do it if you want to do it. And I like to do things that nobody has ever done.
We're going to fly you up into space on the very first flight.
Woo! Ha-ha! I can hardly wait.
Reminds me of the saying na you can't have it all at once, but you can have it all in different times of your life.
No, never too late. Oh, never too late. But an inspiring story. Never too late to, for that matter, rectify a wrong. Kasi just because they were all women before, they had bested the test during her time, and then they rejected them.
Galing, ano?
Now, justice and a dream.
What's your dream that you want to, you have to realize?
Nalampasan na ako ng PBA draft.
Boss MVP. Baka pwede pa sa ibang liga. Well, that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampa.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News. Have a good evening.